it got real dark, man. My career is done. I had to try to get control again.
Brandon Byron Jennings, born September 23, 1989. Before players were skipping college for the G League or overseas contracts, Brandon Jennings was already doing it. At one point, he was viewed as the point guard of the future, a flashy left-handed scorer with unlimited confidence, elite high school mixtapes, and a style that felt made for the internet era before basketball had fully entered it. Jennings wasn't just hype, he was a basketball prodigy. The type of player who made 30-foot shots, ankle breakers, and impossible finishes look normal before stepping foot in the NBA. Instead of college, he shocked the basketball world by going overseas to Italy, changing the blueprint for future stars forever. Then, after becoming a lottery pick, he exploded almost immediately, dropping 55 points as a rookie and looking destined for superstardom. For a moment, it felt like the league had found its next great scoring point guard. But somewhere between the hype, expectations, injury, and reality of NBA basketball, Brandon Jennings never fully became the player people imagined. He still had a solid career, he still made millions, but for someone once viewed as one of the biggest point guard prospects ever, the story still feels unfinished for these reasons. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Brandon Jennings was a 6'1" point guard from Compton, California, who became one of the most hyped high school basketball players of the 2000s. He first attended Dominguez High School, where he became a star before he transferred across the country to the legendary Oak Hill Academy in Virginia, where his national reputation exploded even further. At Oak Hill, Jennings quickly became one of the most electric guards in America. During the 06-07 season, he helped lead Oak Hill to a dominant 41-1 record and the #1 ranking in the country. By his senior year, Jennings had fully become a basketball phenomenon. He averaged over 35 points a game, set Oak Hill's single-season scoring record with 1,312 points, and earned several of high school basketball's biggest honors, including the 2008 Naismith Prep Player of the Year Award, Gatorade Player of the Year in Virginia, Parade Magazine Player of the Year, and EA Sports National Player of the Year honors. He also finished ranked as the #1 overall high school prospect in America by multiple recruiting services. Originally, Jennings planned to attend Arizona and continue the school's famous point guard tradition, but everything changed after the NBA's age restriction rules prevented players from entering the draft directly out of high school. Academic issues involving his SAT score also complicated his college path. Instead of going the traditional NCAA route, Jennings made national headlines by signing professionally with L'Automatica Roma in Italy, becoming one of the first elite American prospects to skip college entirely and play overseas before entering the NBA draft. Stunt number 1, the overseas gamble changed everything. When Brandon Jennings decided to skip college and play professionally in Italy, it felt revolutionary. Today, it's normal to see top prospects take alternative routes through the G League, Australia, and overseas leagues, but back in 2008, Jennings looked almost rebellious for doing it. Most elite American players still viewed college basketball as the only acceptable route to the NBA. Brandon Jennings changed that. Instead of spending a year building his brand in the NCAA, he signed professionally overseas and instantly became one of the most talked about young players in basketball. The move made him famous beyond just basketball circles. He became a symbol of independence and confidence, a teenager betting on himself before that mentality became trendy. At first, the move looked genius. Jennings secured major money before playing an NBA game, signed a groundbreaking contract with Under Armour, and became one of the first young guards whose entire image felt built for the internet era. The swagger, tattoos, confidence, and flashy scoring style made him feel different from the polished college stars around him. But while the attention was massive, the actual basketball situation overseas may not have helped his basketball development as much as people assumed. Jennings himself later admitted he struggled adjusting to Europe and mostly spent the year trying to survive physically and mentally, rather than refining his overall game. Unlike college stars who spent a full season learning structure, shot selection, defensive discipline, and half-court offense, Jennings entered the NBA still heavily relying on pure talent, speed, and confidence. In high school, his athleticism and scoring instincts overwhelmed almost everybody he faced. But in the NBA, every guard was athletic, every defender was strong, and every mistake became magnified. He still entered the league with star-level hype, but parts of his game remained raw beneath the highlights. The gamble also created enormous expectations before he even played his first NBA game. Jennings wasn't viewed as a normal rookie. He was viewed as a player who changed basketball forever. That brought pressure most young players never deal with immediately. The spotlight became bigger than his actual development curve. Instead of being allowed to grow naturally, people expected him to instantly justify all the hype surrounding his unconventional rise. And while Brandon Jennings absolutely had a successful NBA career, the expectations attached to his name may have started becoming unrealistic long before he ever stepped foot on an NBA court. Stunt number 2, the Achilles injury took away what made him special. By the time Brandon Jennings was traded to Detroit, it finally felt like things were slowing down for him in a good way. The flashy young scorer who once played almost entirely off confidence and instinct was beginning to mature into a more complete point guard. He still had the quickness and creativity that made him dangerous, but now he was learning how to control games better as a playmaker. During the 2014-15 season, he was quietly putting together some of the best basketball of his career. Detroit had started turning things around after trading for him, and Jennings looked like he was finally approaching the all-star level many expected years earlier. Before the injury, Jennings was averaging nearly 16 points and 7 assists while helping lead a late-season playoff push. His chemistry with Andre Drummond was improving, his decision-making looked sharper, and for the first time in years, it felt like his game was evolving beyond just highlights and scoring bursts. The athleticism was still there, but now it was paired with better pacing and control. He no longer looked like just a flashy young guard trying to prove himself every possession. He looked comfortable. Then everything changed in January 2015 when Jennings tore his Achilles tendon against Milwaukee. The injury instantly altered the direction of his career. Achilles injuries were viewed very differently back then compared to today. Modern players have shown it's possible to return from them at a high level, but during Jennings' era, many players were never truly the same afterward. He himself later admitted that the first thought going through his mind was that his career might be already over. His game depended heavily on speed, bursts, and quick change of direction. He wasn't a physically dominant 6'5" guard who could overpower defenders, so he needed that explosiveness to create space, beat defenders off the dribble, and collapse defenses. Once the injury took even a fraction of that away, everything became harder. The separation wasn't the same, the acceleration wasn't the same, even his confidence as an attacker started looking different. He still fought to stay in the league after the injury, bouncing between Orlando, New York, Washington, and back to Milwaukee. But the version of him that once looked capable of becoming one of the NBA's next star point guards never fully returned. The Achilles injury didn't completely end his career, but it changed the trajectory of what that career could have become. Stunt number 3, good at everything, great at nothing. One of the hardest things about evaluating Brandon Jennings is that he was genuinely talented at almost every aspect of basketball. He could handle the ball, create shots, push the pace, score in bunches, make flashy passes, and completely take over games when he got hot. That's why so many people believed superstardom was inevitable early in his career. He had the style, confidence, and offensive freedom that made him feel like the next great NBA point guard. But as the years went on, one problem slowly became more clear. While Jennings was good at many things, there wasn't one specific skill he absolutely dominated at on a superstar level. He wasn't an elite shooter like Steph Curry. He wasn't an overwhelming athlete like Derrick Rose or Russell Westbrook. He wasn't a master floor general like Chris Paul. And despite his scoring explosions, he also wasn't an elite finisher around the basket because of his size. Jennings' game was built more on rhythm, confidence, creativity, and momentum than one unstoppable trademark ability. That became difficult once defenses adjusted to him over time. Early in his career, defenders often underestimated how fearless he was offensively. The 55-point game as a rookie added even more attention to his name and made people view him as a future franchise scorer immediately. But over a full career, he struggled at times with efficiency and consistency because many of the shots he relied on were difficult shots. Some nights he looked impossible to guard, other nights the same aggressive style hurt him. The reality is Jennings may have entered the NBA slightly ahead of his time stylistically, but not physically. In today's NBA, where smaller guards have more spacing and freedom offensively, his game might have translated even better. Back then, the league was still more physical, and smaller scoring guards had a much harder time surviving unless they possessed one truly elite skill. Jennings had star moments, but he didn't quite have that one bankable trait needed to consistently separate himself from the league's other talented guards long term. Still, calling Brandon Jennings a disappointment would be unfair. He played nearly a decade professionally, earned millions of dollars, changed the pathway for future prospects, and left behind one of the most memorable rookie performances in NBA history. The problem is that when a player enters the league carrying future superstar expectations, simply being good often ends up feeling smaller than it really was. All in all, Brandon Jennings ended up having a career most basketball players would gladly take, but because of how much hype surrounded him early on, it never fully felt that way to the public. Before he entered the NBA, he had already changed basketball culture by skipping college and going overseas to Italy, opening the door for future prospects to take alternative routes to the league. Then, once he arrived in Milwaukee, the hype exploded even more after his unforgettable 55-point rookie performance and several strong seasons between the Bucks and the Pistons. For a while, it looked like he was finally growing into the all-star level point guard many expected him to become. But after tearing his Achilles in Detroit, he was never quite the same player again. The quickness, burst, and confidence that once made him dangerous slowly faded, and his career eventually turned into bouncing between NBA teams, overseas leagues, and the G League searching for consistency. Eventually, he stepped away from basketball while still relatively young and shifted focus toward fashion, business, and media work. Brandon Jennings still changed basketball history more than most players ever will. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.